From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. Radio Pilipinas World Service can also be heard on shortwave broadcast through the shortwave facilities of the United States Agency for Global Media or Voice of America on the following shortwave frequencies: 15.640 MHz, 17.750 MHz, and 21.720 MHz. I'm your host, Leo Magpayo, and this is Dateline Malacañang in Review. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday urged beneficiaries of the administration's Presidential Scholars Program to make full use of the government support by completing their studies and preparing themselves for future service to the nation. Speaking before scholars in Makati City, the President emphasized that education remains one of the most valuable investments the government can give the youth. Under the Bawat Barangay Makikinabang initiative, each barangay or village receives 200,000 pesos in assistance, with 100,000 pesos earmarked for scholarships. Each barangay selects 5 presidential scholars, each receiving 20,000 pesos in educational aid. In Makati alone, 115 scholars are set to receive financial support. President Marcos said he specifically instructed barangay officials to prioritize students who are close to graduating but struggling financially. The chief executive noted that with more than 42,000 barangays nationwide, the program aims to help over 200,000 scholars in total. Addressing the students, President Marcos underscored their role in shaping the country's future. He encouraged the scholars to study hard and maximize the opportunity given to them. President Marcos expressed hope that the scholars will eventually give back to their communities and contribute to nation building.
Naging presidential scholar kayo dahil meron kaming programa na nagbababa ng pondo sa ating mga barangay officials. At ang halaga nito ay 200,000 piso bawat barangay. Yung ihiningi lang namin sa mga barangay official na yung kalahati nun, yung 100,000 ay gagamitin para magbigay ng scholarship. Bawat barangay mamimili ng 5 na presidential scholar at bibigyan ng tigta 20,000. Yan ang programa. Kaya't lahat ng nabigyan ay kayo na yun ay naging presidential scholar. Ang sinabi ko sa kanila, suggestion ko lang sa kanila na dapat hanapin nila yung mga malapit na magtapos. Pero baka hindi magtapos dahil nga kulang sa pambayad, whatever, kailangan magtrabaho. Whatever the reason is, ito yung tulong para naman makapag-graduate yung ating mga kabataan. Dahil napakahalaga na magkaroon kayo ng magandang pinag-aralan. A good education is a gift that cannot be taken away from you. Yan ang aking laging sinasabi. At ito ay napakahalaga dahil alam naman natin, pagka magandang training, pagka magandang napag-aralan, ay maliwanag, marami kayong magagawa upang tulungan ang inyong sarili, para tulungan ninyo yung mga pamilya ninyo, tulungan ninyo ang Pilipinas, mararamdaman ng Pilipinas yan, sa buong Pilipinas yan. Kaya napakaganda nito dahil sa 42,000 plus na barangay, tigli-5 scholar yan, labis sa 200,000 ang mabibigyan natin ng tulong na scholar. And that is important because lagi ko namang iniisip, kaming mga nakaupo ngayon, di forever ito eh. Kaya darating ang panahon, nandyan kayo na ang magpapatakbo ng lahat, ng mga negosyo, ng mga sa gobyerno. At mabuti naman, pagka masabi natin na nakapag-aral kayo na mabuti, magandang inyong edukasyon, ay ready na kayo. Ready na kayo para dito sa bagong challenge na ihaharap sa inyo.
Was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Also on Monday, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. assured Filipinos that the government is working non-stop to ease the burden on vulnerable communities as he led the distribution of financial and rice assistance to barangays or villages in Makati City. Speaking at the Bawat Bayan Makikinabang Makati City program at the Makati Coliseum, the President said the administration is maximizing government resources and strengthening coordination between national and local governments to speed up the delivery of services. President Marcos explained that the administration has redirected the Local Government Support Fund or LGSF so that local governments can directly implement projects and assistance programs instead of relying solely on national agencies. As a former governor, he said, empowering local government units or LGUs ensures that aid reaches beneficiaries faster and more efficiently. Under the program, each barangay in Makati received 200,000 pesos through the Socio-Civic Projects Fund. Half of the amount, or 100,000, is allocated for scholarships for 5 presidential scholars per barangay, each receiving 20,000 pesos in educational assistance. The chief executive said the initiative is designed to help students who are at risk of dropping out due to financial hardship. The administration also rolled out its rice assistance program under the LGSF, with beneficiaries receiving 10 kilo sacks of rice. President Marcos emphasized that this is not a one-time distribution. Qualified recipients will receive rice 6 times a year or once every 2 months. The event also featured the turnover of barangay development equipment procured through the assistance program, underscoring the administration's push to strengthen local governance and community services.
Asahan po ninyo na ang inyong pamahalaan ay hindi po natutulog, hindi po nagbabakasyon kung hindi walang ginawa, kundi mag-isip ng paraan kung ano ang pangangailangan ng ating ng taong bayan, kung ano ang pangangailangan ng ating mga naghihirap na kababayan, kung ano pa ang aming magawa para makatulong. Ito po ay aming ginagawa. At bukod pa ron, kami po ay nakikinig din sa inyo. Kaya't sabihin po ninyo sa amin kung ano ang mga problema, anong nahaharap ninyo, anong klaseng tulong ang kinakailangan ninyo. At titignan po natin at kung kaya gawin ng pamahalaan, gagawin po natin yan. Huwag po kayong nag-aalala, dito po ang inyong pamahalaan, nandito po ang gobyerno na nag-aalalay sa inyo, na tumutulong sa inyo at tinitiyak na yung buhay po ninyo ay maging mas maginhawa, kahit kaunti lang, makapagdala po ng ginhawa sa inyong mga buhay.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Still on Monday, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. reaffirmed his administration's push to expand government assistance and strengthen support systems for vulnerable Filipinos as he led the Bawat Bayan Makikinabang rollout in Mandaluyong City. Speaking before residents at the Mandaluyong College of Science and Technology Gymnasium, The president said the government continues to look for ways to deliver timely and meaningful aid to communities still struggling with daily needs.
Yan po ang ating ginagawa at patuloy po ang aming paghahanap ng iba't ibang paraan upang kayo po ay mabigyan ng tulong at kayo po ay naaalagaan, kayo po ay naaalalayan, ay po natin, marami pa po sa atin ang kailangan ng tulong. Asahan po ninyo na inyong pamahalaan ay hindi na kami nagpapahinga. At kami ay lagi kami nag-iisip kung ano pa ba ang mga paraan na magagawa natin upang matulungan ang mga kababayan natin na nangangailangan ng tulong at paano paratingin ang tulong na yan sa kababayan para maramdaman ang magkakalagan. Kaya asahan po ninyo na ang pamahalaan ninyo ay nandito. Ang pamahalaan ninyo ay laging nag-iisip ng ibang lahat ng bagay na maaaring gawin upang tulungan kayo. At hindi naman na nakuutos kami na iting gawin yun. Sabihin, nakikinig din po kami. Kung may kailangan din, kung meron kayo nakikita na kailangan ayusin, sabihin po ninyo sa amin. Gagawin po namin, ang kaya namin gagawin po namin. Tuloy-tuloy po ng pagkakunayan, hindi lamang sa gobyerno, kung hindi sa isa't isa. At sa ganun paraan, lahat ng pangangailangan at least ay malalaman natin at kung para kalaman natin kung hindi solusyon, pagtulong ang lahat. Yan po ang aming hangarin sa pamahalaan nito. Nandito po kami, nakikinig po sa inyo, nag-aalalay po sa inyo, nag-aamahal sa inyo, at ginagawa lahat para magagay ang buwan.
Monday's rollout in Mandaluyong is part of the administration's nationwide expansion of the Bawat Bayan Makikinabang program, following earlier launches in Muntinlupa, Las Piñas, Parañaque, and Pasay. The initiative aims to strengthen grassroots governance by directing national resources to barangays while supporting education, food security, and local development. Among those who joined the event were Mandaluyong Mayor Carmelita Abalos, former Department of the Interior and Local Government Secretary Benjamin Abalos Jr., and former Mandaluyong Mayor Benjamin Abalos Sr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Tuesday reaffirmed the Philippines' adherence to the One China policy, saying the country will not interfere in matters involving Taiwan. In an interview with Japanese media, the president said the Philippines continues to recognize the People's Republic of China as the sole sovereign government of China, a long-standing diplomatic position Manila has maintained for decades. President Marcos, however, underscored the need for a peaceful resolution to tensions in the Taiwan Strait, warning that any conflict in the area would have direct consequences for the Philippines, particularly in northern Luzon due to its geographic proximity. He also pointed out that around 200,000 Filipinos live and work in Taiwan, making their safety and the stability of the region a key national concern. The chief executive said the Philippines remains engaged with Beijing through diplomatic channels and continues to support dialogue and cooperation to help maintain peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region.
Dateline Malacañang.
Also on Tuesday, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. said regional security challenges in the Indo-Pacific will be a key agenda item when he meets with Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi during his state visit to Tokyo later this month. In an interview with Japanese media, The president noted that both the Philippines and Japan are confronting similar coercive activities and gray zone tactics in contested waters, from China's actions in the West Philippine Sea to its claims over Japan's Senkaku Islands in the East China Sea. President Marcos said these developments underscore a rapidly shifting security environment, making closer coordination among like-minded partners increasingly vital. He also welcomed Japan's more proactive defense posture and its participation in this year's Balikatan exercises alongside Philippine and United States forces, saying the move enhances interoperability and strengthens collective readiness. According to the chief executive, his discussions with Prime Minister Takaichi are expected to cover information sharing, technology cooperation, military training, and broader regional security initiatives involving Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN and other partners. President Marcos will begin his 4-day state visit to Japan on May 26th, marking the 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the Philippines and Japan.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. met with United States Undersecretary of State for Economic Growth, Energy, and the Environment, Jacob Helberg, in Malacañang on Tuesday to advance discussions on expanded economic cooperation between Manila and Washington. According to the Presidential Communications Office, talks centered on major joint initiatives, including the Luzon Economic Corridor, investment and technology partnerships, supply chain cooperation, and trade priorities. The Luzon Economic Corridor, a trilateral effort of the Philippines, the United States, and Japan, aims to accelerate infrastructure connectivity, strengthen the semiconductor ecosystem, modernize logistics, expand clean energy investments, and drive digital transformation across Luzon. Government projections estimate the initiative could generate up to 1 million jobs for Filipinos. Both sides also tackled the Pax Silica initiative and other programs designed to deepen collaboration in strategic industries and emerging technologies. Malacañang said the meeting reaffirmed the commitment of both nations to broaden economic and trade ties, signaling a partnership that now extends beyond security cooperation into innovation-driven growth and shared prosperity. This year marks the 80th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the Philippines and the United States, as well as the 75th anniversary of the Mutual Defense Treaty. The U.S. remains one of the Philippines' top trading partners and a major investor in the national economy.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Wednesday assured the public that government agencies are moving aggressively to roll out flood control projects across Metro Manila and other regions ahead of the rainy season. Inspecting the Gregorio Araneta Drainage Improvement Project in Quezon City, the President said the administration is implementing multiple engineering interventions under the nationwide Oplan Contra Baha program to ease flooding in long-troubled communities. The 482 million peso project involves installing two 1.5-meter diameter high-density polyethylene pipes to expand the existing drainage system. The 758-meter stretch from Caliraya Street to E. Rodriguez Sr. Avenue is targeted for completion by May 31st. G. Araneta Avenue, situated near Talayan Talayan Creek and the San Juan River has long been one of Metro Manila's most flood-prone corridors due to frequent overflow during heavy rains. President Marcos said the upgrade is part of a broader strategy that includes drainage expansion, desilting operations, pumping stations, and river rehabilitation. He added that the temporary pumping station in the area will eventually be replaced by a permanent facility near the San Juan River. The chief executive noted that the interventions follow recommendations from NOAA, or the Nationwide Operational Assessment of Hazards Studies, which identified critical zones requiring long-term engineering solutions. President Marcos acknowledged that additional excavation work is needed before peak monsoon months, but expressed confidence that residents will feel improvements once heavy rains begin. While Metro Manila remains a priority because of its dense population and vulnerability to flooding, President Marcos emphasized that similar flood control projects are underway nationwide.
Well, as you know, we're here in G. Araneta Avenue. Tinitingnan natin mga iba't ibang ginagawa natin para mabawasan ang baha. At ito ay isang bahagi lamang. This is only one part of the interventions that we will be making. For example, ito, may drainage, merong desiltation para palalimin yung ilog. Tapos yung nailagay doon na malaking tubo, yun ay para sa drainage din, para yung magkatubig ay dadalhin dito. Tapos bukod pa ron, meron na tayong pump dito, may bomba na rito para pagka meron na namang tubig na dumarating dito, dahil dito historically pagka masyadong malakas ang ulan o kahit na may ulan, basta may ulan lang, baha agad dito eh. Kaya kailangan natin itong pumping station. Sa susunod siguro ay itong pumping station, temporary lang ito. Sa susunod ay gagawin natin permanent sa malapit-lapit sa San Juan River. At isang bahagi lamang ito sa napakalaking plano. Ito yung mga pinapakita sa atin. Meron tayo kasing NOAA study na ginawa ilang taon na. Ngayon pa lang natin talagang ginagawa lahat ng mga rekomendasyon doon sa study na yon. This is one of the areas that are critical. Kaya ito, nandito tayo. But it is not the only area that we are doing this kind of interventions to make sure that we find a way to bring the water, na ilabas ang tubig at para naman hindi na masyadong mabaha. Kaya kailangan pa rin natin na gumawa ng kung ano-anong bagay kagaya nito sa kabuuan. Ang ginawa po natin ay hindi para sa Metro Manila lamang. Siyempre yan ang inuuna natin dahil masyadong highly populated at marami na apektuhan pagka may baha. Kaya ito yung inuuna natin. Ngunit, hindi dahil bumabaha rito, dito lang namin naayusin. Nahanap na kung saan nanggagaling yung tubig at gagawa naman ng paraan doon para hindi na bumaba ang tubig, para hindi na mapuno yung ilog. So these are the strategies that we're employing. It will take a little time, but we've put in a good start. Isa lang ito, napakarami ng ganito na ginagawa natin around Metro Manila at saka sa buong Pilipinas.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Wednesday called on local government units or LGUs to ensure that public funds intended for community development are used wisely and efficiently. Speaking at Malacañang Palace during the mass oath-taking of the newly elected national officers of the Provincial Board Members League of the Philippines, the President reaffirmed his push for stronger, more capable LGUs as partners in inclusive and sustainable development. President Marcos stressed that tighter coordination between national agencies and LGUs is essential to closing service gaps at the grassroots level and aligning social development programs. He noted that LGUs now have access to funding through the Local Government Support Fund or LGSF, the Socio-Civic Project Fund or SCPF, and other assistance programs to implement priority projects in their communities. The chief executive reminded local officials that these resources must directly benefit their constituents, especially the most vulnerable. President Marcos underscored that national and local governments must operate as one to achieve the administration's goal of improving the lives of Filipinos. The president earlier committed to increasing allocations for the LGSF and SCPF to speed up the delivery of services nationwide.
The national government has been trying to engage more and more the local governments in everything that we do, even if it is technically a national project, for example. We're all naghahanap kami ng paraan na pwedeng mag-ugnayan ang national at saka local government. Marami nang tayong programa na ganun, yung LGSF, yung Socio-Civic Development Program, tapos yung sa school building na binaba namin lahat. Kaya gusto kong baguhin. I really wanted to change. Again, it's because of my experience sa local government. And kuminsan frustrating kasi parang yung national government ayaw makinig sa atin, di ba? At saka kung ano-anong gustong gawin, pero sabi hindi bagay sa amin yan at saka hindi practical. So that's why we wanted to put in the hands of the local government more, allow you to do more of this of your own initiatives. Because importante yung mga malalaking programa, malalaking project, importante talaga yon. At gagawin ng national government yon. Ginagawa na namin lahat. Pero in the end, to identify the most needy in each community, we need you. And then, more than that, kasi kung kaming gagawa, pagpapadala kami ng tao sa bawat bayan, iikot yan, magsasurvey, usually mali-mali pang makukuha nila dahil hindi tiga ron. So, we're depending on you for that. But at the same time, not only in terms of making the list, but also yung sa pagbigay ng benepisyo sa ating mga nangangailangan na mga kababayan. So, be conscious that we should now view the national government and the local government as working together as one.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Still on Wednesday, Malacañang affirmed that the arrest warrant linked to the International Criminal Court or ICC against Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa remains valid, following the Supreme Court's denial of the senator's request for a temporary restraining order or TRO. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the administration recognizes the effect of the High Court's ruling, which effectively allows law enforcement agencies to act on the ICC warrant. In a 9-5-1 vote during a special en banc session, the Supreme Court rejected De La Rosa's plea for a TRO and a status quo ante order that would have barred government agencies from enforcing any ICC-related warrant, red notice, or diffusion request unless backed by a Philippine court order. Castro also echoed the position of the Office of the Solicitor General or OSG, which earlier said De La Rosa may now be regarded as a fugitive. Asked about President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s reaction to CCTV footage showing De La Rosa leaving the Senate compound aboard a vehicle owned by Senator Robin Padilla, Castro said the president believes the incident was not proper. Castro clarified that the videos presented earlier by Interior Secretary John Vic Rimulya were sourced directly from the Senate's own surveillance system. This comes amid claims by Senate Sergeant-at-Arms retired General Mau Aplaska that the footage had been edited or spliced. She added that the Department of the Interior and Local Government, or DILG, Department of Justice, or DOJ, and the Office of the Ombudsman will evaluate all available evidence to determine what truly transpired.
Sa ngayon, masasabi po natin na ang warrant of arrest ay valid laban dito kay Senator Bato de la Rosa. At ang lahat ng maaaring interpretasyon at evaluation na sabing resolution ng Supreme Court ay ibabato po natin kay Secretary Frederick Vida. Yan din po ang pananaw ng OSG na siya po ay kinukonsidera na fugitive. Ang naipresent po sa briefing kahapon, yan po ay galing mismo rin sa Senado. So kung ano pang ebidensya na meron sila, kakailanganin po yan ng DILG, ng DOJ at ng Ombudsman para makita natin ang buong katotohanan.
Castro also questioned why De La Rosa was allegedly allowed to leave the Senate premises despite being under protective custody, especially after National Bureau of Investigation agents attempted to serve the ICC warrant earlier.
Alam po natin na ang mga tao na dapat na may panagutan, yan din po ang ayon sa Pangulo, ay dapat na managot. Kung wala namang kasalanan, ay kailangan maklear ang kanilang pangapangalan. Kung ikukonsidera ito na pagtakas at pag-alis, hindi po natin ito didesisyonan or bibigyan ng judgment, pero sa paningin po ng Pangulo ay hindi po ito dapat nararapat.
Rosa, a former Philippine National Police or PNP chief and chief architect of former President Rodrigo Duterte's anti-drug campaign, faces possible arrest in connection with the ICC's investigation into alleged crimes against humanity tied to killings during the previous administration's war on drugs.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Thursday reminded young Filipinos that education is a right, not a privilege, as he urged students to maximize government support aimed at helping them finish school. Speaking before presidential scholars at the Obando Central School in Bulacan Province, the president said the government is duty-bound to ensure that every youth who wants an education has access to schools, learning opportunities, and financial aid. President Marcos emphasized that under the Bawat Bayan Makikinabang program, each of Obando's 11 barangays or villages will receive 200,000 pesos in assistance, with half or 100,000 earmarked for scholarships. 55 scholars from the town are set to receive 20,000 pesos each through the Socio-Civic Projects Fund. The chief executive again instructed barangay officials to prioritize students who are close to graduating but are at risk of dropping out due to financial hardship. He noted that with more than 42,000 barangays nationwide, the initiative could support over 210,000 students across the country. President Marcos also underscored that education remains one of the most valuable assets a person can have, a treasure, he said, that cannot be taken away and can uplift both individuals and their families. He challenged scholars to study hard and prepare for future roles as teachers, professionals, entrepreneurs, and public servants. Launched on February 23rd, the Bawat Bayan Makikinabang program has since expanded to several provinces and major cities, including Eastern Visayas, Cagayan, Muntinlupa, Las Piñas, Parañaque, Pasay, Makati, and Manila. More than 8,700 barangays have benefited so far.
Hanapin ninyo yung mga malapit ng magtapos pero namimiligro yung pagtatapos nila dahil may kulang sa pambayad, kailangan magtrabaho, kung ano man. Basta't makatulong. So, bawat isa sa inyo makakatanggap ng 20,000. Yun ang pampatulong sa inyo para sa inyong scholarship. At lagi kong sinasabi sa ating mga presidential scholar na nakikita ko, ay dapat mapakinabangan ninyo na mabuti ito. Yung 20,000 na yan at gamitin ninyo sa mabuti para matulungan ang pag-aaral ninyo, matulungan ng pag-edukasyon ninyo at sa ganung paraan ay makakatulong tayo ng napakarami dahil ang barangay sa Pilipinas more than 42,000. Kaya kung kada barangay makakakuha tayo ng 5, more than 200 to 210 plus thousand ang natutulungan natin. Para sa akin, napakahalaga nito. Dahil para sa akin, lagi kong sinasabi, ay ang edukasyon, para sa pamahalaan, ang edukasyon ay hindi pribilehyo. Ito'y karapatan ng bawat na ating kabataan na kailangan ng pamahalaan ay asikasuhin at tiyakin na maganda ang sektor ng edukasyon. Ang isang edukasyon, ang kayamanan ay kayamanan yan. Hindi na makukuha sa iyo yan, hindi niya malulusaw yan, hindi maaagaw yan, hindi mananakaw yan. Habang buhay kayo, nandyan, nasa sa inyo yan at magagamit ninyo para pagandahin ang inyong mga buhay, para pagandahin ang buhay ng mga pamilya ninyo at saka yung mga community ninyo. Kaya mag-aral kayo na mabuti, study hard, work hard, at makikita natin napakaganda ang magiging tulong ng magandang edukasyon para sa inyong lahat.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. said the government will enforce tighter monitoring of landfill sites throughout the dry season, following the Navotas sanitary landfill fire that sent smoke across parts of Malabon and Obando in Bulacan Province. Speaking in Obando during the rollout of the Bawat Bayan Makikinabang program, the President warned that extreme heat can trigger spontaneous combustion in landfill areas, making constant surveillance essential. President Marcos said the Navotas blaze was not deliberate, noting that the intense summer heat likely ignited methane trapped deep within the closed landfill. He explained that the fire was difficult to put out because garbage in the area was piled as high as 2 stories, with the flames burning underground. Traditional firefighting methods failed, he said, because water could not penetrate the deep layers of waste. Instead, authorities shifted to a containment strategy, covering the burning sections with wet soil. The chief executive said reclamation companies were tapped to supply excavated soil, but access roads had to be built first to allow dump trucks to reach the site. After about 10 days of road work, the soil dumping operation began. President Marcos said that within a week of continuous soil coverage, the fire was finally extinguished. He also cautioned residents about the dangers of inhaling toxic smoke from burning waste, especially plastics, which release hazardous fumes. He expressed hope that no major health issues resulted from the incident. The president earlier announced on May 10th that the Navotas landfill fire, traced to methane buildup from decomposing waste, had been fully put out after extensive efforts by government agencies, local authorities, and private partners.
Kaya't kailangan talagang patayin, tabunan ng lupa. Kaya after mga 1.5 weeks, mga 10 days, nabuo na yung kalsada, kaya inumpisahan na to. Yung mga kaibigan natin sa mga kumpanya na nagre-reclaim, ay nagpatulong kami. Sabi namin yun na nga, yung mga hinuhukay ninyo, sa amin nyo nadalhin yan, at para may tambak namin doon sa may apoy. Kaya sa awa ng Diyos, after 1 week, pagkatapos noon, nagsimula yung pagtambak ng lupa, ay nawala na yung apoy. Sana naman wala naman masyadong napinsala, wala naman masyadong nagkasakit. Pero talagang delikado kasi yung usok na yan. Hindi parang usok na nagagaling sa apoy na may kahoy o kung ano. Pero kung ano-ano kasi ang nasa ilalim noon. Ang pinakadelikado pala, ngayon ko lang nalaman, ang pinakadelikado pala yung usok na nanggagaling sa nasusunog na plastic. Kasi kung papel-papel lang, kahoy lang, yung plastic ang delikado. Iba pala yung lumalabas dyan. Kaya yung iba, kung masyadong mabigat ang usok, magkakasakit. Naitakbo naman ninyo, Mayor. Di ba napunta nyo, nadala nyo sa ospital? O sige, wala namang casualty. Meron din. Ay, naku. Hindi bale, mula ngayon, talagang mabantayan na natin yung mga ganyang klase. Wala tayong magagawa dahil alam naman ninyo, pag tag-araw, nandiyan talagang napakainit. Lumiliyab pala na mag-isa yan. Walang nagsindi. Basta't lumiliyab na lang na mag-isa. Kaya ganyan po nangyari.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has declared May 27 a regular holiday nationwide in observance of Eid al-Adha, one of the most sacred celebrations in Islam. The declaration, issued through Proclamation number 1264, allows Muslim Filipinos across the country to mark the Feast of Sacrifice, which the Bangsamoro Darul Ifta has set for Wednesday, May 27, based on the start of the 1447 Hijra Islamic lunar calendar. The move follows the recommendation of the National Commission on Muslim Filipinos. Under Republic Act 9849, Eid al-Adha is recognized as a regular holiday in the Philippines. The observance commemorates Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his son in obedience to God, a central symbol of faith, devotion, and submission to the divine. Eid al-Adha is one of the two major Islamic feasts, considered the holier of the pair alongside Eid al-Fitr. It also marks the culmination of the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca, one of the 5 pillars of Islam. Muslim Filipinos account for around 6% of the country's population.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service can be heard over the following shortwave frequencies: 15.640 MHz, 17.750 MHz, and 21.720 MHz. Radyo Pilipinas World Service is also live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our post as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang in Review. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.